I know this is somewhat novel, but thank you all for joining us. I guess that everybody's done a little bit of this. I know I have over the last few weeks, and I think it works surprisingly well. The helpful approach is if you can keep your mics muted, unless you want to speak. If you can stick your hand up, and hopefully someone will see you and point it out to me. Or there's the chat bar on the right hand side if you want to alert that way. And finally, in desperation, if you can't get my attention or Bruce's attention, just unmute your phone and say that you wish to speak. I think that's probably everything by way of introduction. Can we go to membership and membership update, Bruce? We have okay. one resignation.
Okay. Can we just pick up, Colin? Given the nature of the meeting, obviously the item 1 was the protocol for electronic meetings. I don't intend to go through that on a page-by-page basis, but it's just worth reminding sort of members of the key things involved. The meeting is being, Schools Forum being a public meeting. The meeting is being sort of streamed live, and I think you've already outlined asking people to keep their mics muted unless they have a specific point to make. We'll also use the chat column down the right-hand side as well, as Sue's outlined. If anybody has any specific questions in relation to the protocol or the conduct of the meeting, we're worth having them now. I think that's probably our license to continue, Colin. Thank you.
Smashing. Okay. Right. Item number 2, membership and membership update. Bruce, would you like to bring us up to date on that?
Yes. 2 items to update you on since the last meeting. In the run-up to this meeting, we sadly had the resignation from Stephen Harker at James Calvert Spence College. Stephen's been a very active governor for the last 4 years, but is unable to continue beyond his current term of office. I've been in touch with Stephen, and I know you've been in touch too, Colin, thanking him for his service. That does leave 1 vacancy in terms of for a governor from our maintained schools, ideally a middle school representative, and that's something we'll look at. We'll seek to fill over the course of the summer in advance of the next meeting.
Okay.
More pleasingly, obviously, we have 1 new member who I hoped was joining up. Yep, I believe he has now.
Yes, yeah. He's here. Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to extend a welcome to Alan Hardy, who's the Chief Executive from the Northumbria Church of England Academy Trust. We had an academy vacancy following, you may recall, the resignation of Kieran McGrain. So delighted that Alan has stepped up and become involved in Schools Forum on that basis.
Yeah, if I can echo all that, welcome, Alan. It's good to have you on board. And I'd just like to add in relation to Stephen Harker that his note of resignation, he was very complimentary about the work of the Schools Forum and how much he'd enjoyed it. And yeah, he asks for that to be passed on to members. So thank you, Stephen, for that. Moving on then, Kay, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Elaine Chaplin, Belsae Care, Graham Atkins, Hadrian's Trust, Stephen Harker, you've just mentioned, Steve Hemmensley from Newbrook CB Primary, and Andrew Thirlwell, Bede Academy.
Right, okay. And Bruce, have you done a quick count? Are we queried just out of interest from what you can see?
Yes, that's no problem. I think we've got an extra 10. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you again, everybody, for attending. Item 4 then, disclosure of interest, if any. Any disclosure of interest? We don't usually have any. Okay, we can pass on and move into the minutes and the matters arising. Just bear with me whilst I bring my copy up. We can go through this page by page. Anything on page 1? Anyone want to comment on? Page 2. Graham, you wanted to ask something about 41.3?
Yes, since Councillor Davey is present, have you got any update re Bright Trade? And have we got the money back yet?
The answer on both of those is no, I'm afraid to say, for this meeting.
Okay.
Councillor, Chair, through the chair, when do you think we'll be able to get any reply from Bright Trade or from whoever you're dealing with?
This has gone on for some time. I think recent events have somewhat taken over the priorities of the DFE, but I will write again to the DFE with a similar request to the ones that we've done in the past, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
That sounds fine, thank you. Moving on then, I'm interested in, I'm sure everyone is, in 41.4. Could Councillor Daly or the Director bring us up to date about the proposed free school?
Chair, with your agreement, I think Sue Atherstone will be able to update on the free school.
Yeah.
Okay. Sue?
Yes, thanks, Colin. I think, as we said in the minutes, that we did hold some interviews for an academy trust to actually come in and run the free school in Northumberland. But obviously, with the COVID lockdown, there hasn't been any announcements as the outcome of that that process yet. So we're still waiting to find out officially what the result of that process is. So unfortunately, I'm not able to give any more update than that to Schools Forum today.
And presumably that will delay the implementation of the new school.
Well, obviously, the main thing is around actually getting the construction of the new building done. So the capital team are still working, potentially at risk at the moment. So work is still being undertaken on feasibility, ground investigation works in order to progress with the capital project.
Okay, thank you. Anything more for Sue on that?
There isn't the announcement of who.
Okay. Any questions for Sue on that? Okay, moving on. Page 3. Any questions on page 3? Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7.
Sorry, Chair. Just picking up page 6. The details of the SEND core offer was circulated via e-courier to all schools immediately following sort of February half term. So that has been sent now. I think most, if not all, Schools Forum members would be in receipt of e-courier, but we can certainly arrange for that to be sent specifically onto School Forum members as well, which is just picking up 43.12.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. The rest of page 6 into page 7. Page 8. Sorry.
Again, sorry, there was a couple of DSG items there. Ordinarily, we would try to bring the DSG final outturn to this meeting, but obviously we've only taken essential items. Corporate finance are still working through the final details of that, but I think we're on track with the position reported in February, and we've seen a further reduction in the DSG deficit.
Good. Dean, do you want to say anything more further on that?
Only to endorse what Bruce has said. We did set out on a task a couple of years ago of reducing the deficit on the high needs block. I know Abby's in the meeting and can put me straight. I think we're making good progress on reducing that. We have been supported by additional funding that's been put in from central government, which is appreciated. We have managed to launch the free at point of access SEN offer for next year, which was a real ambition of Forum, that we would make sure that no child in the county was unable to access additional help because of the school's budget. So and Nicola Taylor's done a great job on that. We've got to make it manageable, and the proof of the pudding will be from September, but it is certainly a change from the last 3 years. And generally, I think we're making good inroads into that deficit, and I think we're increasingly utilising the high needs block in a much more efficient way. So yeah, I'm comfortable with the way we're moving in that. We're generally, and it's no point comparing nationally, but when I do see some of the national figures of 12-15 million pound overspends, I actually think we're doing a good job of overall managing that dedicated schools grant.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, any questions for Dean on that? Okay, moving on to the final page, page 8. Okay, can we approve those minutes for signature, please? I can see nods all around. Very good, thank you. Moving on then, communication. Head teachers daily updates. Bruce, do you want to cover that?
I think it was just worth mentioning, one of the things we've started to do, and credit to Dean around this, is obviously maintain a daily bulletin to head teachers throughout the sort of COVID-19 disruption and interruption, as well as a number of other forums, including weekly meetings for head teachers. I think the feedback we've had informally this has been well received. The information is consolidated into the weekly e-courier as well. And, again, there's been a sort of real commitment to do that, and hopefully that's been helpful.
I see the e-courier every week. I don't see the head teachers daily updates, but I've been aware of them, and I have to say I've been very impressed with how up to date everything seems to be. I just wonder if officers have been sleeping, Dean. Have they had any sleep over the last 3 months?
Well, it's interesting, and I think that's probably my next target. I'm going to launch a newspaper next. No, it's. I mean, basically what happened was at the very start, as you're aware, we got 48 hours in which to close down schools. The announcement was made on the Wednesday night, and that schools were going to close from the following Thursday. And a plethora of information was sent out to schools, including over that weekend, where I remember on a Saturday evening desperately trying to find head teacher emails to get something out. And we realised very quickly that we needed to have a much more coordinated approach, and hence I think by about the second or third day, the Tuesday or the Wednesday of close down week, we had the update going, and it has been well received. And you're absolutely right, officers have been superb. It has been an endeavour to get all that information there, and we do filter it as well. It's not just throw everything on the page and and see what sticks. It is filtered. We try to get the best and most appropriate and relevant information out to our schools. I think the communication, and I think there's a long-term point to this really, Chair. We didn't introduce the Thursday meeting for locality head teachers, whereby the representative from each locality, and we've had between 20 and 23 representatives at those meetings every single Thursday. And it's been really, if you were to track the history of them, what have been the crisis points, closing down, Easter holidays, bank holidays, reopening, health issues, bubbles, it's almost like a history, an educational history of what's happened during the virus. What I think it has done, I think it's brought the local authority and its schools, and when I say its schools, I mean all of them, academies maintained, diocese schools, I think everybody, I think it has brought us a lot closer together as a collective whole. And I think as organisations like Forum, as local authorities, as the Education and Skills Division, we really need to keep building on that trust that has been established over the last 3-4 months between schools and the local authority. Because it's got to be something of strength, and it's got to be something of power. And I think, for me, the next step would be that head teachers have far more involvement in the strategic direction of education in this county. And I think the meeting that we had to cancel in April was a start of having those sort of conversations. And I really think Forum should be one of the forums for pursuing that conversation around how do we involve not just lip service to head teachers, a couple of head teachers in the working group? How do we genuinely have a strategic forward vision for the local authority that is driven by head teachers? Because as we've seen throughout this crisis, it is head teachers who are absolutely at the cutting edge of this. And our job is to support and try to clear as many obstacles out of the way of head teachers having a successful product for the kids, for the communities that they work in. So I do think this whole thing is linked together, but I think the way it's worked in the last 4 months, as like in many things, like in online meetings like this, has absolutely accelerated the way we should be working. And I think Forum has a key role in it. Absolutely has a key role in it.
Thank you, Dean. I would endorse all of that. And thank you, Mike and Emma, for your positive comments as well. And Dean, well done, everyone. Well done.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, could I just come in there if
Indeed.
that's all right? Yeah, so it was, again, largely echoing what Dean has said there, because every single day I've been copied into these briefings going out, and I know I've spoken to both quite a large number of head teachers and teachers who have absolutely told me that the communication between the council and the teaching or schools or teachers has just been turbocharged during this crisis. And I think people actually forget, and Dean touched on it there, 48 hours notice to shut down schools and reopen for vulnerable and key workers. And the amount of effort which has gone in from heads, teachers, teaching assistants, cooks, cleaners, you name it, it has been like I do liken it to a kind of a wartime can-do attitude. And it has been phenomenal, and it's been appreciated. So when I hear people going on saying, "Oh well, the schools have been shut since the 23rd of March," no, they haven't.
Yes.
Huge numbers of schools open. Even during the peak of the lockdown, when I was going past Northburn Primary, which is near where I live, there were parents walking their kids into school. There were teachers standing at the gate taking the kids in. It has been a phenomenal effort, and I have to say, I give a lot of praise to heads and to teachers, but you know what, the central team here at the County Council has been exemplary. Sue, Dean, Kath McAvoy, you name it, Bruce, the lot, every single one of them has been working there, and I'm going to be blunt here, working their backsides off during the crisis. And Sue's an expert on free school meals, that making sure that we had all of the things that went wrong with the national system, making sure that it went right for Northumberland. Dean's been absolutely on the ball. And at this point, I do want to embarrass Dean slightly, because I am aware that last week a letter went out to head teachers indicating that Dean is taking a new future in his life. And I think it is really, really important that we acknowledge the tremendous impact that Dean's had since he's been with the County Council for, I think, 2.5, 3 years now, ranging from that, propelling that investment of £150 million into our school stock, the significant communication improvement with our schools, because I tell you what, it was terrible in the past, and it's absolutely massively improved. Best performing local authority for early years and key stage 1. The Ofsted inspection, which we had recently, which moved us from RI to good. Dean's touched on a number of things there that we've done really well, and I just think it would be remiss of me and School Forum not to acknowledge that it's his second time he's been with the County Council. So the first time was good, this time's outstanding, using Ofsted's expressions. But he has been phenomenal with what he has done in a short period of time. And I'm gutted that he's going to do some other stuff that he's going to really enjoy. But that's fine. And he's going to be a damn hard act to follow. Yeah. And I just wanted to put on record, on a personal level as well, that I think he has been phenomenal for the county. And Might come back a third time, who knows? But I just wanted to put that on record. So thank you very much, Dean. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of Schools Forum for that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Wayne, which I'm sure we all endorse. Dean, we will miss you. And can I just add that as chair, I've always had great confidence that when I throw something at you in the meeting, I'm going to get a clear, coherent answer. And I think that's wonderful. You take it all in your stride. Thank you very much.
Well, he switched his camera off. Like crying his eyes out, or he's clapping his hands, going, "No, I don't."
Or blushing. Thank you for that, Wayne.
He's going to have a very interesting next couple of years. I know this because I've had a conversation with him. So watch this space. It's not the last you'll see of him. Thank you, Dean.
Okay. Thank you very much for saying that, Wayne. And well done, Dean, and all the other officers. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 7? This is really the essential bit of the agenda. Our commentary and hopefully approval on schemes for financing schools. Bruce, would you introduce this, please?
Of course. Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the brief covering report went out with the draft, hopefully outlining why we do this on an annual basis. I'd say there's 2 key drivers for any changes to the scheme for maintained schools. One, the ESFA will direct certain revisions, and there are a couple of revisions there they have asked for inclusion in this year's scheme, which are highlighted in paragraph 4.1. The information on the treatment of community powers as part of school expenditure, I don't think is anything particularly surprising or will involve sort of radical changes. It's probably worth highlighting in terms of the risk of protection arrangements. Risk protection arrangements have obviously been in place. Risk protection arrangements via the ESFA have been in place for academies for some time now, but the ESFA have decided that that should also be opened up to include the offer to local authority maintained schools, and indeed 1 or 2 local authority maintained schools have pursued that option. So that's now reflected in the scheme for financing maintained schools.
Okay.
The second driver is, of course, if we feel as a council working with our schools, there's anything we can do to clarify or improve the scheme. And I think we've taken that opportunity in terms of to be more explicit around the process for supporting schools in financial difficulty, schools for causing concerns. The specific ESFA guidance is fairly abrupt and short in relation to this, but I think we've taken the opportunity in pages at the front of the document in pages 1 and 2 to highlight the steps that we would be working through before the ultimate red button worst case scenario result of the removal of a school's delegated budget. I think it's probably helpful to have greater clarity around that, and that's what we're striving to do in the scheme for financing schools. Just a note about the draft we've circulated. You may have looked in horror and seen the red pen all over it. I'm conscious when we circulated the scheme last year, we'd included the revisions, but we hadn't highlighted them. So I've tracked the changes this year, hopefully to make it easier for all School Forum members to see where we've made some amendments. Clearly, when the final scheme goes on the website, we'll remove the red tracking document. But I think, again, it's important that the process outlined, we've been quite specific around the process as outlined on page 2. Stages 2 to 4 is listed there are very prescriptive, under the Education and Inspection Act. And we have very little flexibility in relation to those. Essentially, if we're sending a letter under stages 2 to 4, we need to inform both the DFE and the Regional Schools Commissioner as well. Echoing, a lot of the comments that have been made and comments in the chat room, in terms of trying to promote better and more effective working between the local authority and schools. What we feel it's worth doing is including that first initial stage, which is simply between ourselves and the school, a letter of concern, if you like. hopefully, and in the vast majority of cases, that will be the case where we'll see greater working between the local authority and our schools to address any financial challenges arising. And we know there are financial challenges. Obviously, Abby and a team from corporate finance work very closely with our maintained schools to this respect, and hopefully we can address the vast majority of the problems at an early stage and nip them in the bud.
I think that's a considerable improvement, Bruce. It sets it out very clearly, so nobody can be in any doubt what the authorities' responsibilities and powers are. And I think the introduction of stage 1 is a very good innovation as well. It is very helpful that you've tracked the changes as well. It makes it a lot easier to pick that out. Okay, any questions or comments then on this for Bruce? I suppose I'm thinking of the entire document. Anything that anyone would like to ask, please? Okay, Bruce, anything further you want to say?
No. Again, in line with the SFA direction, and given both schools have been fairly busy over the course of the last few months. In line with the SFA guidance, we have kept changes to a minimum, and really, in terms of initiated by the council, there is that just one change in relation to the process around the use of delegate, removal of a delegate budget or the intervention notice.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, I ask again, any further questions or comments on that? No? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Colin, can I just jump in there, Colin? Is that all right?
Yeah, you can.
It's Mike.
Mike. Hi, Mike.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Just a good question regarding the detail of it. And has there been any indication from government, I suspect the answer is probably going to be no, not yet, about the financial impact? Because obviously schools are keeping track of record of loss of income and additional costs and things. And I have some confidence that we'll get some of that back, but it could present all of our schools with some significant difficulties in terms of managing deficits that arise from this situation and the ongoing concern around it moving forward in the next year or so. Thank you.
I think specifically, hopefully Mike and our other schools picked up the fact that the online claim form was published by the ESFA last week and circulated via e-courier. It was something I was going to highlight under any other business, and we would encourage schools to take advantage of that and include any eligible expenditure that any eligible exceptional expenditure that can be claimed under in relation to COVID-19. There were the 3 criteria in relation to premises, in relation to school meals, and in relation to specific cleaning costs. And we circulated both the claim form and the guidance in last week's e-courier. In relation to the wider financial picture, the DSG report in February obviously reported the headline sort of education budgets, which were for 21, 22 and beyond, which were purely indicative at that stage. It would be good to think that they would be honoured by government, but it's one of those things that's in the mix at the moment, Mike, given COVID-19, I guess, and the significant additional public expenditure incurred as a result of that.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, we've got the information around the bits, but there's certain bits around, particularly examples of schools losing income that's become part of your normal budget setting process in terms of lettings, and particularly one of my schools with the nursery, the loss of income from paid places, not the obviously the centrally funded places. So those bits don't seem to be, I haven't found that information yet, and that's quite a concern when your budget is hinging on a very close but a sort of deficit surplus situation, and those bits are accounted for within your planning in quite some detail, and there's not a lot of information on that I've seen yet. Thank you.
Ben?
Just to add to that, yeah, I would absolutely echo that. Lettings, catering to a lesser extent, but still catering as well. But all I can find is loss of income not covered at all, just so that everybody's aware of that.
Chair, it's Dean. I've been more than happy. Kath and I are meeting with the DFE this afternoon. We have raised a number of issues about this. particularly the cleaning costs, where when the additional guidance was provided last week, some of the, should we call it, tightening up, one head wrote to me to say that at the start of this, schools were told, do everything you can to keep going for vulnerable workers and vulnerable children. And the head said I'd spent nearly £6,500 additionally on cleaning, costs of overtime, cleaning materials and so on, to prevent there being a virus outbreak at my school. And now I'm told I can only claim that if there has been a virus outbreak at my school. Which is, we raised that with the DFE as a serious concern last week, that was not the spirit of it. That's not the spirit that head teachers went about this in. So I'm awaiting a response to that one this afternoon, and I'm more than happy to take those issues about lettings back to them again. And I do think we have to keep, so I realise this is not a bottomless pit of money, and at some point things, but there was a real mandate on schools to do everything you can to provide for your communities and for key workers. And the DFE, I feel, are obliged to honour that, and we'll keep pushing on behalf of our schools.
Okay, thank you, Dean. I don't want to anticipate the agenda for September, but it may be that September will provide an opportunity to bring everyone up to date on that, or at least to say something more about where we're at. I'm sure heads will be well aware by that stage of where they're at, but it might be worth bringing it all into focus at the September meeting, Bruce.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions or comments on this paper? Okay, can I ask for your approval, please, for the scheme for financing schools for 2021? Thank you, lots of nods, that is good. Moving on then, item 8, the work programme.
Very little change. Sorry, Chair. Very little change to this. We've deferred a couple of items from this meeting to the next meeting, including the DSG outturn and the high-level analysis of school balances. Essentially, obviously, we don't know where we'll be by September, but either via virtual means or suitably socially distant in CR1 or wherever.
Okay.
The intention would be to very much sort of have that meeting and have as full an agenda as possible at that point. Okay.
Any questions or comments on item 8, the work programme? Okay. I have any other business. Bruce?
No, none from me.
Dean?
Nothing from me either, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, just to round off, I certainly couldn't add anything of substance to what Wayne has already said in relation to the departure of Dean, but just to say again, Dean, it's been a real pleasure working with you. We will miss you, and I'm sure we will think of you in September when we convene again. The very best of luck for the future.
I really appreciate, thank you, and I've enjoyed working with Forum as well. Really, it's a good group of people with the best interests at heart.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm sure the summer for many of you will not be much quieter than the last 3 months. I wish you all luck and all the best, and we will convene again in September. And thank you again for your attendance. Thank you.
Thanks, John.